CPR for the black man, breathe life to the black man, I see the light, bring me back again, speak on it till we all stand, CPR for the black man, breathe life to the black man, I see the light, bring me back again, speak on it till we all stand,
What's good, y'all? Your boy Shanti in the house, and you are tuned in to CPR, breathing life into the black man. You know we exist to equip, ignite, and empower black men to thrive emotionally, spiritually, economically, and physically. So we excited to get into another episode today. Got a special guest in the building, but before we jump to him, I want to say what's up to my co-host and my man, C-Man. You know what? You don't know this, bro. When I first saved your name in my phone,
C-Man.
I first saved your name in my phone. I said Chicago LeBron, because I met Shelton playing basketball.
Wow.
And they were talking about Shelton like he was like Jesus Shuttlesworth.
Yeah, that's my I guess my celebrity look-alike. Funny story real quick. I remember being in like the movie theater, actually with my wife, and some kid walked by and was like, "Is that LeBron?" And so yeah, kind of funny joke or whatnot. But yeah, man, I'm excited for another chance to get together, man. I feel like these episodes are a great time, and we get to discuss current contextual issues in the culture, and really just do this, man, for black men. So I'm excited for another time to get together.
Yeah, what's up? So we got my man in the house. This is my brother from another mother, man. We go way back. He is literally, it's so funny when I think back, man, I've got this crew of people who have kind of known me during the most hard, difficult times of life and all in between, from the highs and the lows. And he is one of them. Man, you know, you've known me for literally 23 years, bro. It's hard to believe that we've been in a relationship that long. But my man Eric is in the town coming in. He's a West Coaster, but you know, he's in ATL right now.
Hey, what's going on, everybody? Yeah, Shanti, we go way back, and I'm privileged and honored that you'd asked me to participate in this topic and this show. Really believe in you and all you do for the Lord and all you do for the community. So I'm excited to hop in, man.
That's what's up. Now, we could not go on without shouting this out. We're not doing a discussion on HBCUs, but Morehouse is strongly represented here today. So just got to shout out to everybody from the house. You know what I'm saying? We got songs we can do, but I ain't going to make you sit through none of the songs, Chuck.
Yeah.
But yeah, man. Hey, this is one that's hard to start because it's kind of like, where do you start? So I think 2020 and 2021 have been some of the hardest years of probably since the civil rights, maybe, as far as just kind of some of the experiences that African Americans within the and other minorities, Latino Americans, have experienced within the United States on such a let's say publicized level. You're looking at the recent deaths of Adam Toledo, Dante Wright, recent shooting of Ma'Khia Bryant. You think about Breonna Taylor, you think about George Floyd, Ahmaud Arbery. You keep going back all the way to Trayvon Martin. It's just been it's been a season where it's just been difficult. Now, I want to state up front, we're not in any way talking about the specific cases, you know what I'm saying? Because everything has their nuances, especially like this newest one, Ma'Khia Bryant. It's like, it's very interesting to look at in light of what happened. But do want to talk about just the experience of being a minority in police interaction. So I'm curious from you guys. I kind of know what I've experienced, but like, what have your experiences been like, whether good or bad, just being an African-American male in the city when it comes to police interaction?
Yeah, I mean, for me, you know, I don't have any, to be totally honest and transparent, I don't have any like interactions where it's just gone really south. You know what I mean? I haven't been pulled over that many times, but the few times I have, part of it, I think, is just because of, you know, my upbringing with my father. He's just been really adamant to make sure I knew when I was pulled over that I put my hands on 10 and 2 and that I made sure I let the officer know every movement I was going to make, which is, kind of extreme, but that's kind of just how I was taught. And so I think that has helped me in some respects. But I do think there's a collective just anxiety, for at least for me, whenever I'm in the car, whenever I'm riding by a police officer or whatnot, or I'm pulled over. And I think I wouldn't say that's for every Black man, but I think for most, the overwhelming majority, there's that sense because there has been this notion, and I mean, you guys can correct me if your opinions are different, but there's just been this notion that I have to be on my P's and Q's because any quick movement, any mistake could be fatal. And I think that that's kind of what we've seen somewhat heightened over the past year and a half. But I'm curious to hear about your thoughts in this area as well.
Yeah. And Sheldon, you and our experiences are similar in that, I don't have any really bad experiences to report. Part of that, I think, is living in a majority Black area. The majority of the police officers that I've interacted with in my adult life have been Black. And I remember one time I got pulled over, and he might have been able to tell that I was kind of nervous because my hands, they were on the 10 and 2. He was like, "Man, relax, you're good." But there is the reality, right? Sheldon, you talk about the notion that there's this friction between African Americans or whatever and police. Well, because of any move you make could be your last. Well, we see that with Philando Castile, right? We see that with the young man who's dressed in military garb, pulled over in Virginia, and he's more calm than the police. And so what gets me on that one is, I know, Sean, you said we're not getting into any particular cases, but these particular cases for me really color how I think about it and how I parent, because it's like, okay, comply. This man did everything right. He was pro-military. He was a military. He was calmer than the police. And he ended up getting pepper sprayed over what they thought was not what they thought. They thought it was he didn't have a license plate, but it was just in the wrong place. So what that adds up to for me is it's a nervousness and the fear. Sometimes the fear creeps in and it kind of ebbs and flows because now I have a teenage driver, and maybe we'll get into that a little bit later. But in general, I think these cases really kind of shape the reality of what could happen, even though it hasn't really happened to me. It could happen, and it does happen.
Yeah, it's interesting because I haven't had any life or death experiences, but I have had, I'd say, unhealthy interactions. So it's like I've been pulled over for basically because I was Black. And so I remember I was in Powder Springs, you know where that is, in Georgia.
Yeah.
I just left a friend's house from watching a movie. And it was fairly late in the evening. It was close to, midnight, maybe 1 o'clock in the morning. I just left the house from watching the movie. And man, then we went, and this is what happens when you podcast. Yeah.
That's it. That's
good.
What's going on, young king?
You got the afro going there, man. The curls, it's curling.
That's it.
Yes. Just go.
It's all good.
Y'all getting the real, man. This is what podcast and COVID look like, bro.
Hey, you at home,
I remember
that's how it's supposed to be.
I remember when I left the house, I'm good. Cause I'm like, this wasn't like when I was wilding. So this was after I've been walking with Jesus. So I was not intoxicated or had been smoking, nothing like that. So I'm just driving home, riding the speed limit, chilling. Lights go on. And then, I pulled over, and there was a sense of I was like, I'm good. Cause I was like, I don't have a record. There's nothing for them to pull up on me. And he pulled me over, and he was like, yo, let me see your license and registration. I was like, hey, officer, sir, no problem. I can get that for you. Can you help me understand what it is that made you pull me over? And he was like, I just need your license and registration. And so in my mind, I'm just like, I'm going the speed limit. I didn't do a rolling stop at the stop sign. And man, he was just like, what are you doing in this area? And I was like, I just left a friend's house. You just left a friend's house in this area? I was like, yes, sir. We just got done watching movies. He's like, all right, I'll be back. So then he ran my stuff. Of course, I know he was running to see if he could find anything on me, and there was nothing to be found. But it was like situations like that that was just kind of like, man, come on, son. This is so unnecessary. And then I remember early on, so you figure that people say, oh, well, that was probably late. I'm like, nah, it was like 2000, probably 2006 when this happened. So this wasn't like, 1945. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, it was recent. Yeah. And then I remember when I just got done graduating high school, went my first year at Morehouse and came back to visit Cincinnati during one of the holiday breaks. When you go cruising, sometimes when you go to an area where they got a club, like, you go cruise around the block. Like, you may circle the block like 4 or 5 times, but you're just trying to drive through, let people see what you got. You're trying to check the vibe of the scene, see how everything's going. And so we did that. And then we started heading out because it was like, man, we're not going to stay. And it wasn't like we did that creep where we were slowly looking and had our hands out the window like we pointing to somebody. Like, no, it was just like the chill vibe. And man, we get pulled over. And so we get pulled over, I'm like, man, what's this about? I look out to the right because I'm driving, my boy's in the passenger seat, and I can see out the rearview mirror, like the officer's coming up with his gun. I'm like, and he's looking at me like, what's wrong? And then all of a sudden his eyes light up because he's looking out my rearview mirror, and the other officer is coming up on my side with the gun. And they're like, license and registration. And I'm like, yes, sir, here you go. You know what I'm saying? But it was like, and again, no reason, no cause, no, we were looking for somebody. It was just basically, quite frankly, guilty by being Black. And, so it's hard to live in a space like that, you know what I'm saying? And like you, Shelton, you do the 10 and 2. I say mine is a little more extreme in that literally in less than 60 seconds, I have my car off, my keys literally out of the ignition on the dashboard, and my wallet on the dashboard, and both hands out of the window. Now, I've had some people say, well, you shouldn't put that on the dashboard. I'm like, nah, I want them to, because I keep my wallet real easy to access. So I just throw it on the dashboard. And so my thing is, there's nothing to get confused by. I want it to be wide open. And I literally put both hands out the window. Now, I've had some officers get offended because they're like, come on, why you got your hands out the window? Like, look, this ain't got nothing to do with you as a person. I ain't giving no excuse. But that's like, I live like that. And it's hard to live under that pressure, man. It's hard. But I feel like you got to.
Yeah, and I think too, I've never had a police officer pull a gun on me, but I have had a gun in my face, and man, the anxiety that causes, it almost as if like time stops in a sense, and you realize, anything could happen, even a mistake could happen, and it could be the end. You know what I mean? And so I think, with social media, we kind of talked about this a little bit, with social media kind of showing us instantaneously every event, every killing, every bad interaction, and then we get to see it. Yeah. I think also it's a collective trauma that's even embedded on all of us, because now we can see things right away. And now, as I'm driving, in the city of Chicago with, a lot of things going on in this city, when a cop is coming up behind me or just rolling by me on the road, it's kind of like oh man, I need to be on my best behavior, no mistakes. You know what I mean? And I think that's a collective trauma that I think Black men and Black people, not just Black men and women, we're definitely wrestling with, even more so in a heightened environment in this social media age and instantaneous news.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think we were talking about this before the show. Before you knew that these things could happen, and it was like a collective knowledge in the African-American community. It was a narrative. It was just part of, everybody gets the talk, but now it's verified. Right. And I think that's one of the reasons why we're starting to see some momentum, is that it's verified, and there's no questions about it anymore. You can't explain it away. You can't excuse it away. Yep. And, it's called CPR, right? Breathing life into things. I think it's very important for us as Black men to really, to manage our own trauma, right? Is to manage how much we intake, So I know for me, one of the things I do is that, I might have the TV on to be informed, but if I see the flash to an image of like George Floyd, I mean, I'm not looking. I'm turning away on purpose. Or if I know they have that on, because I think constantly seeing that, for me anyway, all it does was just to stoke fear, right? Mm-hmm. Because the more you think about it, it's enough for me to know, okay, what's the latest developments without me having to witness this man being murdered and tortured over and over again. So I think as African people, I think it's people.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. In general, we need to manage how much death we see. And I know that can go in a lot of different ways, whether it's, violence in movies or the real stuff. Because it's all the image of God being snuffed out, but particularly for Black men, knowing that this can happen at the hands of people that are supposed to be here to protect life and to serve life, taking life in too many cases.
Yeah. And, when you say that.
Yeah, you got at a great point, man.
Go ahead, see.
Go ahead, Ashanti.
I was going to say one thing.
No, I was just going to say, man, you got to. Go ahead. You got it, Ashanti.
Oh, man. That's funny. I was going to say one of the things I want to throw out there, just because I'm always thinking about what other people are saying. I know somebody's like, what about the Black on Black violence, which to me is like the even phrase of it is a oxymoron. It's like, yo, listen, if you're in a predominantly populated area with the majority culture, usually the violence is going to take place is going to be amongst each other in that majority culture. So, I mean, that's another story. But I'll say this to those who are hearing. Right now, we're not saying that police officers are the only issue that we face. And I wouldn't say police officers, the policing system isn't one of the only issue we face, but it is one of the many issues we face. You know what I'm saying? So I want people to be able to hear the conversation and understand that you can have two conversations simultaneously. So we can equally be talking about the importance of standing against gun violence in inner cities and other communities, whether that be African-American or Hispanic-American. But we can also have a conversation about some of the inequality we face in light of being Black and brown people when we interact with the police. One of the things I remember was, to your point, E, like I try to be very mindful of watching what I watch. So I've never seen George Floyd. Like I've not seen the interaction as far as what's happening. I refuse to watch it because I can't take it. But I remember I saw Laquan McDonald and I saw Philando Castile. And again, I saw Philando Castile situation. I saw the Facebook version, not what was actually shown in court. So I literally saw when the young lady had gone on Facebook Live and it just showed up on my feed. And I was like, is this real? Because I'm looking at it, like I literally saw his body and I saw him there trying to breathe. And so like those are images I can't erase. Those are images that I can never get rid of. And it hurts because there's this sense of feeling, like you said, it's the anxiety it creates. It's a fear that it creates. And I want to stay up on the news and what's going on, but there is this kind of self-protection that I have to put in place. Because I told somebody this a while ago, the struggle that I feel I face and other African Americans or minorities face is this. When you know your history, you have to deal with the trauma of the past. When you have your own personal history, you have to deal with your own personal trauma. And then you also have to deal with a collective trauma of what's currently happening amongst your people in your community. And so it weighs heavily on you, you know what I'm saying? Because you're dealing with past, present, and the collective, you know what I'm saying? Which is just painful. There's no other way to put it. It's extremely painful to the point that we were discussing this in one of my classes the other day. I cannot think of the name of it. It was drawing blank, but it was talking about basically race-based trauma. And it talks about some of the things that can stem from it, numbness. It talks about kind of disconnecting emotionally from society and all these different things. And I'm like, man, it literally is a health epidemic having to deal with these traumas because it internally is destroying us because we don't know how to process this type of pain this much.
Yeah, and I think to your point too, when we think about our lived experience, there's no escape from that in a sense. You know what I mean? And so wherever, I think about when you wake up, you have to engage the world in some capacity. And so there's no escape. And so obviously we're not called to live in fear, you know what I mean? And so we have that, but yet at the same time, with what we know happens and just our experiences, there are challenges that we face, within each day. And so I think that's one of the things that I'm definitely, as you guys mentioned, vigilant in fighting, is just regarding the trauma piece. Is just not being so consumed with news, with media, because it's going to affect my day to day. It's going to affect my body. There's this one book that I read. It's called "The Body Keeps Score," and it's just the effect of like trauma. Literally, as you were saying, Ashanti, it affects your health, your physical makeup, and so I think that's one thing we have to be vigilant against. But I had a question, man. I just wanted to propose to you guys in regards to, you all are both fathers, and so I just wanted to kind of hear maybe E or Ashanti, you guys can answer that question. Is, man, like how is that changing your perspective? Because I'm not, and I just would want to know for you all.
Yeah. I think the way I'd answer that, Shelton, man, is so we were talking about one of these recent ones with, I think it was with Dante Wright or something, and Ashanti knows we're on a group chat, and I just put out a request for prayer because like I was feeling fearful. I felt like a fresh wave of fear as I considered it, because it wasn't really about me. Like when you become a father, for me anyway, everything's about your kids, right? So I'm thinking about my children, especially my son. He's a young Black man. And so I'm talking about this with my wife, and she snapped me out, and she said, well, I'm concerned about you. Now I was like, wow. I mean, not that she wouldn't be concerned about me, but like this whole fear, it wasn't really about me, because in my mind, I know what to do. Like, hey, I'm gonna show my hands 10 and 2. I feel like I can talk my way out of anything, which is probably unrealistic expectation. But, I think what it does is that it, just like parenting in general, man, it helps you realize how vulnerable you are, because there's places where I can't protect him. It's almost like a military, here military in a crisis situation. What do? They tell you to depend on your training, from what I hear. I'm not military, but just like parenting, when he's out there, he hasn't been pulled over yet, but I've taken him to our local police department, introduced him to the police chief and to the police officers. They spent an hour with us, with him in the driver's seat and them pulling him over, like in the parking lot, obviously, and going through what a traffic stop should look like. That kind of training from the time he was 15. I let him start driving me to school, even on the highway. 16, got his license. And so he knows, but man, Philando knew, right? And all these other people knew. So it's definitely drives me to my knees a lot more. Definitely here lately, because I realized, the protesting's cool, the marching's cool. I'll post some stuff. I think all that's necessary. Do what you can. But it's God's protection and God's will, and us acting out of that in an intelligent way that I think will make a difference. But it's that's mine. It's like I just feel really vulnerable. And so when you feel vulnerable, you go to something that's the most stable thing in your life. And for those for whom Christ is their rock, that's where we go.
Yeah, it's layered for me, bro, because I'm coming into the reality of just what these last probably 8 to 9 years has done to me personally. So again, going all the way back to Trayvon Martin, and just the series of things that have transpired, going through the Obama administration and the increased racist tone of our society than the Trump administration, which seemed like it was like we gonna go 10,000 degrees higher to push back against the Obama administration. It's just like, man, it's been a lot. So when I think about my kids, like he said, it's hard not to live in fear. And I know my anchor is in Jesus. I know we got people who listen who have different perspectives of where their anchor is, but that's where my anchor is. But even with that, knowing that, it's still hard, man. It's still hard to rest there because it's like I can't control how they're going to respond. So he's further along because his son is my godson. He's already, driving. Well, my son's like, nah, like I'm 6 and 4 years old. So in my mind, I just see how things seem to be continually getting worse. And so I'm like, how do I protect them? How do I shield them? I already see different temperaments. So it's like, I know what to do when I get pulled over. I know how to handle it when the officer is aggressive. At least I think I do to a certain extent. But I'm like, they don't necessarily have my temperament. One of my sons in particular, I'm like, I know he's just like, he more like his mama. He can be like, what? He gonna buck. And I'm just like, how do I protect him? Because what can happen is, because that's his personality, as a parent, I got to be careful not to then try and beat that out of him. You know what I'm saying? So I can see his personality be more like reactive. And so I've got to help him be who he is, how God created him, and temper himself. But I got to make sure I'm not putting a chokehold on him because I'm out of fear, because I was like, I got to get this out of you, when that's actually a part of who he is as a person. And so it's like that balance you're wrestling with, raising them. And quite frankly, it's scary, bro. Like, it's scary, you know what I'm saying? And like, I'm trying to help even raise them. Like, my kids are, for the most part, they're clueless about what's happened during COVID and all that's been going on. They have a general idea, but I was just like, man, y'all got enough that you're gonna have to deal with. I honestly was like, I don't want to expose you to this level of trauma this early. Like, I want to firm you up in your confidence as being an African-American male, and that God made you in his image and he loves you so much. So then I'll let the realities of life hit you and be there and walk with you. But like, you between 4 and 6, even up to 7, 8, like I want you guys just to be anchored in that. That like you look at your skin, you like, man, yo, I'm dope. I'm Black and I'm dope. That doesn't mean nobody else is dope. It just means that I can appreciate the way God made me. And just like you can appreciate the way God made you. And so it's probably one of the hardest tasks I've ever had. Not probably. It's the hardest task I've ever faced in my life.
Yeah. And I think, again, I think this is a step, hopefully, in the right direction. Though I even when I heard you saying, Eric, in regards to, man, taking your son to the actual police department and actually going through mock being pulled over scenarios, that's really brilliant, man. And I think one of the things that, from what I'm hearing too, and just what I sense even we want from this podcast, is to cultivate men pursuing more relationships and talking about things, because this is where it starts. And if we make sure that we're connecting, if we make sure that we're discussing these things, whether it's just a group chat, there's so many different ways to connect now. We have to be vigilant. That's the word, vigilant in making sure that we're doing all that we can to make sure that we're protecting not only ourselves, but our sons, and just making sure that we're worried about and connecting with other men as well.
And if I can say something on that too, Shelton, is there's an article that was recently written. I just found out about this brother. Y'all probably know him because he's up your way, Esau McCauley. And he said in there, the article is on New York Times, and it's about how he's talking to his sons about the George Floyd verdict. But he has a paragraph where he says, and I'm gonna get it wrong, can't quote it, but he says, America asks too much from Black parents. We must simultaneously wrestle with the facts and tell them and inform them and prepare them for the facts of this country that are against Black bodies and Black souls, but at the same time empower them to live fully free and fair lives in this country. And so, Shanti, when you said that, you know, I think it's beautiful that we have kids that are at different stages. Like, I'm teaching my son and have taught my son about, hey, here's the reality, son. And Ashanti, you're in the midst of telling you, like, hey, I'm Black and I'm dope. And giving them that perspective, like, hey, to be white, blonde hair, and blue-eyed is dope too. And to be brown skinned and to have almond-shaped eyes is dope. You know what I'm saying? So I think that's beautiful as well. And I'll share one more thing. I remember my son, he's a big soccer guy. And we had gone up north, the north side of towns where it's a lot of it's a really, really white school, white private Christian white school on the north side of town. And I sat him down after the game, and I was hard on him during the game, probably a little too hard. But I explained to him, like, look, I'm hard on you because you look at all these other kids, this world and this place, like this literal place and this place, this country you're sitting in, was made for them. It wasn't made for people like you. So you got to be tougher. That's why when you get down, it reflexes in me to yell at you in front of everybody, get up, because you're going to have to get up. And paralleling that soccer, and he's like 10, 11 years old now. And so that might have been a little too early. But what I didn't expect for him was he teared up and he says, why does it have to be that way? And that I don't know if I told him, but that kind of broke me, right? I was like, dang. So he's already feeling it, like I brought it on. But that just goes to show, like, even imperfectly done or untimely done, it's like, I have to figure out when's the right time for me to really drill this in and when to not. And my white counterparts or my they don't have to deal with that conversation, you know?
I think that's the hard part. Like, there's literally at times a bitterness that you can get because you just like, man, how come we got to do this? Like, y'all don't have to do this. Why we got to do it? And, you know, it hurts, man. Because like, I went on, this is a foreign word for most minorities who work. But I was able to take a sabbatical, which means I was able to actually take time off from work for an extended period of time while still getting paid. And literally on the front end of my sabbatical, the Ahmaud Arbery case takes place. Towards the tail end of my sabbatical, like 3 weeks in, Breonna Taylor happens. Coming out of my sabbatical, George Floyd happens. And so everybody was kind of like, well, yo, did you get some rest? I was like, no. Like, this was not a restful time for me. Like, this was stressful. I'm glad I just didn't have any work responsibilities so I could try and grieve in the healthiest way possible. But it is like, it's this trauma and learning how to deal with it. And I think Tiff made a great point where she said she's concerned about you. Because like, man, I will say that currently I'm not the best father and husband right now because of the trauma. Like, I'm really struggling and having to fight to, I don't want to say just stay afloat, but to a certain extent, I fight to stay afloat, to stay in the game, because it's worn on me. It's worn on me in ways that I didn't even know possible, where it's hard to even currently stay connected. But I'm fighting to still stay connected. And I think that might be some of what guys are going through as well. So I just encourage you, fellas, and we say this all the time, I know it may sound like a broken record, like the need for talking to guys. Like, you got to have community. You got to have homies. Like he said, like he had a thread. It's probably about 15 of us on that thread.
Yeah.
Like, you know, he sent it out. And so we praying immediately. I remember he sent one thread one time, and then I just called him like, yo, what's up? You know, to check on them and be there. Like, you need that, man. You need that, man. And so I just want to encourage you fellas, man. Hey, community is everything. Now, you may not have 10, 15 guys to call, but if you got one or two, text them. Have that people who's like, yo, we going to do this to help hold each other up, because otherwise, man, we in trouble. And like for example, Shelton, I hit Shelton up yesterday, just like, yo, right now I'm not winning this battle. I'm really struggling. And he was able to, you know, help prop me up, man.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's kind of what we've been talking about all throughout this podcast is we need people, we need other brothers, because sometimes we can be in a mindset where you don't see the whole picture. You know what I mean? And you don't have the right perspective. And sometimes, and we all get there, and you need an encouraging word, or you just need somebody to say, yeah, man, I'm wrestling too, I'm struggling too. But somehow, some way, we're gonna make it because we got to make it. Kind of like Eric, what you were saying, in the sense of there's really no other option. And so, regardless of the challenges, we have to. The good thing is we have some things that we can put in place, as far as, like you mentioned, just protecting our minds, protecting our hearts from all the things, images that we see, making sure that we're connecting with other brothers. But then, as you mentioned as well, the most important is we here believe in Jesus Christ, and is getting on our knees and praying, because prayer is really what's going to get us through and hold us through. And so that has to be at the top of the list.
I agree. I agree. And appreciate you, Shanti, being transparent, man, because this trauma is not the only thing we deal with as men, right? We got all these other issues. We have, you know, like Shanti mentioned, you got husband and parenting and being a worker or business owner, or whatever your vocation is. All these things. It's not like, hey, there's going to be this racial trauma. That's all you got to deal with. This is compounded, and it might be some financial pressure. So the brothers and people who are watching this, I don't want to say prayer works, because that has some theological connotations. But I'm just gonna say, like, look, man, when I pray, when I get up from my knees, I don't know if God's gonna do it. I just know that He can do it. Then what I'm starting to do now, which I was a while ago, but I'm actually starting to do, is like look for ways that the prayer was answered. You know, not just praying, getting up and going on my day. I'm like, no, like I really prayed for my son's need. Feel a little better. Is it feeling better? It's not feeling better. Okay, it's not God's timing. Or, you know, God, give me a peace of mind in my day today. I'm not feeling it. And then I look back on my day and take stock and be like, well, you know, thank you, Lord, man. Today was a good day. I don't know about tomorrow. And in a way, I think that's His way of fostering more faith and more trust and more dependence if we yield to that. But much easier said and much more said than actually done. I mean, don't get me wrong. I still find it hard to be like, okay, I'm going to pray before I look at my phone or whatever. So in the fight like everybody else, but prayer, like you said, Sheldon, it's a grace.
Well, fellas, man, I think it's been a great convo. Appreciate your honesty and authenticity, man, as we always do here. To those who are listening, man, we love y'all. Stay connected. Keep hitting us up. You know, you can find us on YouTube. You can find our YouTube page, CPR Podcast. You can get our details there. You can also email us at cprpodcast@gmail.com. And then you can also look us up on Twitter and Instagram. You can holler us there. We're on those social media platforms. So we want to hear from you. Let us know what you think and your thoughts below on the video. Spread the word. And man, we want to hear from you and connect with you. So hopefully this has been a blessing to you. And we look forward to chopping it up again. E, appreciate you, homie. We're going to have you back with us again. You know what I'm saying?
Yes, sir.
And
All
man,
right.
Y'all be easy. Love y'all.
All right. Peace.
Pressurized pipes inside, see the pressure rush strike. What we don't like, ignore till it bites. Yikes, we toss and turn all night trying to fight the feeling while they write prescriptions. All we need is a conversation, huh? Let's explore all our understatements. Tussles with Satan, I struggle with patience. I live in the penthouse, it feel like a basement. The miseducation of living in America. I love her not. Should I marry her? Daddy just died, bury him. Who gon' carry us? Now it's up to me, hard to see through the barriers. Black man.